What if I told you the most successful investor in history didn't trust the stock market? He didn't read financial statements, didn't care about economic forecasts, didn't follow CNBC. In fact, he thought most of Wall Street was full of noise, overconfident men in suits chasing randomness. While they argued about interest rates and company earnings, he quietly built a machine. A black box, a mathematical oracle that didn't just predict the market, it exploited its every twitch and whisper. His name is Jim Simons, a brilliant mathematician, a codebreaker during the Cold War, a professor who didn't even like business. And yet, he became the architect behind the most profitable hedge fund in human history, Renaissance Technologies. Its flagship, the Medallion Fund, returned an average of 66% per year for over 2 decades. That's not a typo, 66% year after year during dot-com crashes, financial meltdowns. Every storm, they thrived. And they did it with no crystal ball, no insider tips, just data, lots of it, fed into complex algorithms, guided by cold math, and executed by machines faster than thought. So, how did Jim Simons go from solving abstract geometry problems to solving the most chaotic puzzle of all, human behavior in the markets? That's the story you're about to hear. But be warned, this isn't just about money. It's about genius, obsession, betrayal, power, and a vision so precise it made emotion obsolete. You're not just going to learn how he did it. You're going to see why most people never could. Because this isn't the story of a trader. It's the story of a man who rewrote the rules of reality, one equation at a time. Lesson 1. The reluctant genius. Jim Simons never intended to become rich, or famous, or feared. In fact, if you'd asked him early in life what he wanted, he'd probably have said something about solving unsolvable problems and drinking good coffee. He was, by every standard, a mathematician's mathematician, a man obsessed with the beauty of logic, the symmetry of theory. He had no love for Wall Street, no ambition to chase charts or earnings. But the universe, as it often does, had other plans. Born in 1938 in Massachusetts, Simons showed brilliance early. Numbers weren't just numbers to him. They were puzzles, languages, stories. By his 20s, he'd earned a PhD from Berkeley and was publishing groundbreaking work on differential geometry. His colleagues joked that Jim could solve complex equations while floating in his swimming pool, which, it turns out, he actually did. Picture this, a grown man drifting on a pool float, scribbling formulas on waterproof paper. That was his idea of vacation. Then he joined the Institute for Defense Analyses, an elite think tank tied to America's deepest intelligence operations. There, his job was to crack enemy codes, Soviet ciphers, hidden signals, mathematical ghosts. He wasn't reading enemy plans. He was reverse engineering the logic behind them, and he was very, very good. But here's where it gets interesting, and slightly absurd. Simons was fired for opposing the Vietnam War, not quietly fired, publicly. The New York Times actually ran the story. Top codebreaker, fired for having an opinion. Imagine being so good at your job that getting fired makes national news. So, he returned to academia, took a position at Stony Brook University, built one of the finest math departments in the country. But that hunger, that itch to solve systems, to decode complexity, it never left. And one day, he looked at the financial markets, a mess of lines and emotions, boom and bust, bull and bear. Most people saw noise. He saw structure. Beneath the chaos, he believed, were patterns, hidden laws, not unlike the codes he'd cracked before. What if, he wondered, the market wasn't irrational, just misunderstood? But here's what they don't tell you about genius. Wall Street was filled with people desperate to be rich, and yet most of them lost money. Jim Simons didn't care about wealth, yet he became one of the richest men alive. Why? Because he didn't try to beat the market emotionally. He approached it like a scientist, a curious outsider. No ego, just hypotheses. In 1982, when he started his first fund, he lost money. A lot of it. His investors were furious. One actually called him the worst fund manager in America. Simons' response? He smiled and said, "Good. That means I have room to improve." That's not confidence. That's scientific detachment at its purest. What the author really means is this. Sometimes detachment is your greatest strength. Simons wasn't trapped in the same mental loops as the traders around him. He wasn't trying to prove he was right. He was trying to find what worked, even if it defied common sense. That's why he succeeded, not in spite of being different, but because of it. Have you ever felt like you didn't belong in the game you were told to play? Like maybe your real strength wasn't to fit in, but to stand so far outside the rules that you could rewrite them? Jim Simons didn't conform. He didn't follow the noise. He listened to the silence, the signals underneath the surface, the invisible laws waiting to be seen. And when he looked at the market, he didn't see fear or greed or opportunity. He saw code, and code can be cracked. Lesson 2, math over madness. He didn't want traders. He wanted scientists, physicists, cryptographers, astronomers, people who didn't care about price-to-earnings ratios or central bank forecasts. People who understood chaos because markets, Jim Simons believed, weren't driven by logic. They were driven by complexity. And to navigate complexity, you didn't need intuition. You needed equations. At Renaissance Technologies, resumes with Wall Street credentials were quietly ignored. Instead, Simons brought in minds from the worlds of academia and research. His first major recruit was Henry Laufer, a mathematical wizard who once built complex models to study theoretical physics. Laufer wasn't a trader, didn't care for finance, but he understood systems. Let me show you why this mattered. In 1987, the hiring process at Renaissance became legendary for its weirdness. One candidate, a brilliant astrophysicist, was asked to solve a problem about optimal pizza cutting angles during his interview. Another was given a Rubik's Cube and told he had 5 minutes. Not to solve it, but to explain why it was solvable. These weren't gimmicks. Simons was testing for something specific, the ability to see patterns where others saw randomness. Together, they began building models that could ingest thousands of data points, economic indicators, price history, even obscure correlations between unrelated assets. They discovered that rainfall in Brazil could predict coffee futures with 73% accuracy, but only on Tuesdays. That Japanese bond movements at 3 a.m. often preceded S&P shifts by exactly 97 minutes. These weren't theories. They were measurable, repeatable phenomena that no human trader had ever noticed. But the real breakthrough came when they stopped asking why and started asking what. They didn't need to understand why Brazilian rain affected coffee prices on Tuesdays. They just needed to know it did. This was heresy on Wall Street, where everyone wanted a story, a narrative, a reason. Renaissance didn't care about stories. They cared about statistics. That's when everything changed. Here's the metaphor. Imagine trying to navigate a forest blindfolded. That's traditional trading. You think you know the path, but you're reacting late, making guesses. Now imagine having sonar, real-time mapping of every route, every branch, every predator. That was the Renaissance edge. They didn't guess, they scanned. One early employee described the culture shock. I spent my career studying black holes. Suddenly, I'm studying why McDonald's stock drops 0.3% every time it rains in Chicago. It felt insane, but it worked. What the author really means is this. Data, when approached with scientific humility, becomes a superpower. Not because it tells a perfect story, but because it removes the noise. Simons and his team didn't pretend to be prophets. They were pattern recognizers, probabilistic thinkers. They knew they'd be wrong sometimes, but they also knew that, over time, the math would win. And it did. By 1988, they were posting returns that made other funds suspicious. No one makes 40% in a flat market, one competitor said. They must be cheating. The truth was stranger. They weren't cheating. They were playing a completely different game. Have you ever tried to feel your way through something complex? When deep down, you knew you needed a better system? Maybe you've been reacting to life instead of analyzing it, making emotional decisions and calling it instinct. What if you started thinking like a scientist? Testing, measuring, learning, adjusting, no more noise, just signal. But collecting data was only step one. The next challenge? Turning that data into a machine that could not only trade faster than any human, but think better too. A machine that would learn from its mistakes, evolve, and eventually operate with a precision that would make human judgment look primitive. Lesson 3. The code of the market. Every second, the market moves. Not always dramatically, not always predictably, but always, tick by tick, whisper by whisper. Most people see randomness, a blur of noise, headlines, tweets, gut feelings, guesses. But Jim Simons saw something else. He believed that underneath all the chaos was structure, subtle, fleeting, hidden. The market, to him, wasn't a beast to be tamed. It was a language to be decoded. The Renaissance team began treating prices the way linguists study ancient scripts. They weren't just asking, what will go up? They were asking, what comes next after this precise sequence of moves? Not why the move happened, just what tends to follow. Here's where it gets fascinating and slightly ridiculous. They discovered patterns so bizarre, no MBA would believe them. The full moon effect. Certain tech stocks reliably dipped 0.7% during full moons. The Monday morning massacre, European bonds dropping between 9:17 and 9:19 a.m., but only in months with 5 Mondays. One researcher found that when the word moreover appeared more than 3 times in Federal Reserve minutes, gold prices rose within 48 hours, 67% of the time. These weren't superstitions. They were statistical realities, temporary, fragile, but real. The team even named their strategies after sandwiches. The Rubin traded correlated movements between Russian rubles and aluminum prices. The club sandwich was a 3-layer arbitrage between currencies, commodities, and bonds. There was even a PB&J, a simple but reliable pattern between pork belly futures and Japanese yen. One programmer later admitted, "We had a strategy called the donut. No one remembered why we called it that, but it made $2 million a month for 3 years. Then one day, it just stopped working, like someone had eaten the donut. But here's what they don't tell you. The code was real, but it wasn't static. It evolved, mutated, resisted. Like a living language, it adapted to being read. Patterns that worked for months would suddenly vanish. Not because the math was wrong, but because other traders had spotted them too. Or because some subtle shift in market structure had changed the game. The market was learning to hide, so the models had to evolve too. Daily, hourly, the machines had to learn. Simons once said, "Past performance is the best predictor of future returns, if you understand what the past really means." And that's the paradox. While most traders obsess over the future, Renaissance obsessively studied the past. Not because they wanted to copy it, but because they knew human behavior, in all its irrationality, tends to rhyme. Here's the metaphor. Imagine walking through a forest at night with only a flashlight. You can't see far ahead, but if you look down, closely, you notice the footprints, fresh, repeating. And even though the person ahead of you is unseen, you begin to follow. That's what Renaissance did. They followed the footprints in the price, the invisible repetition of human behavior. In 1994, they discovered their most profitable pattern yet. They called it the ghost. It appeared in currency markets between 2 and 4 a.m., when most of Wall Street was asleep. A tiny arbitrage opportunity that lasted, on average, 1.3 seconds. Humans couldn't even see it, let alone trade it. But the machines could. That single pattern generated $50 million in pure profit over 2 years. What the author really means is this. The market isn't efficient. It's habitual. Driven not by logic, but by fear, greed, routine, and delay. And those tendencies leave traces. Like fingerprints at a crime scene, patterns remain, if you know where to look. Have you ever repeated a mistake, financial, emotional, relational, without realizing it was a pattern? What if you started looking at your life like data? What habits keep playing on loop? What scripts need rewriting? Jim Simons didn't care about earnings calls. He cared about footprints. And once his machine started reading them, it began to predict the future, not in a magical way, but in a mathematical one. Lesson 4. Death to intuition. Imagine being told you are never allowed to trust your gut again. Not in a game, not in a trade, not even when the pattern looks wrong and every instinct screams don't do it. That's exactly what Jim Simons told his team at Renaissance Technologies. Because in his world, intuition wasn't an asset, it was a liability. Let me tell you about the October crisis. October 19th, 1987, Black Monday. The Dow dropped 22% in a single day. Traders were literally crying on the floor of the NYSE. One hedge fund manager was found hiding under his desk, refusing to come out. At Renaissance, a young quant named David Magerman watched their model signal massive buys into the collapsing market. This is insane, he thought. We're going to lose everything. He ran to Simon's office. "Jim, we need to shut it down. The model's broken. It's buying into a crash." Simons didn't even look up from his coffee. Is the model following its rules? Yes, but then let it run. By the end of the week, while others had lost fortunes, Renaissance had gained 8%. The model had detected panic overselling and positioned accordingly. Magerman learned a lesson he'd never forget. His fear would have cost them millions. But here's what really kills intuition. Renaissance created what they called the penalty box. Any researcher who manually overrode a trade had their profits tracked separately. After 6 months, they compared human overrides to model performance. The results were brutal. Human intervention reduced returns by an average of 23%. One senior quant, who prided himself on his market instincts, had actually cost the fund $4 million through his improvements. They even ran an experiment. They gave 5 of their best traders a shadow portfolio. They could make any trades they wanted, but only on paper. After a year, every single human portfolio had underperformed the machine. The best human trader, down 12%. The machine, up 54%. One trader later joked, "Working at Renaissance taught me I'm much dumber than I thought. But at least I'm consistently dumb, which the model apparently finds useful." That's when they made it official. No human override. Ever. They literally removed the manual trading buttons from their systems. If you wanted to stop a trade, you had to submit a code change, have it reviewed, tested, and approved. By then, the trade was long over. Here's the metaphor. Imagine jumping out of a plane with a parachute, and halfway down, deciding to take it off because the wind feels different. That's what intuition is when you have a working system. It's self-sabotage dressed as wisdom. What the author really means is this: discipline beats intelligence, every time. Renaissance didn't just have the best minds, they had the most obedient ones, not to authority, but to process, to precision, to the discipline of letting go. And then comes the twist nobody expects. Have you ever ruined something good because you felt you knew better than the plan? Remember that diet you improved until it stopped working? That investment strategy you tweaked until it tanked? That relationship where you stopped following the basics that made it work? The power wasn't in the code, it was in obeying the code. And that's where Renaissance became terrifyingly effective. They weren't trading anymore, they were executing. With no ego, no emotion, no delay. They'd built a machine that saw the pattern and then acted on it before anyone else even saw the wave coming. Lesson 5. The rise of the machine. At Renaissance Technologies, there came a moment when the machines knew more than the humans who built them. It wasn't dramatic, no blinking red lights or robotic takeovers. Just a quiet shift, where the system became too fast, too complex, too precise for human judgment to keep up. And that's exactly how Jim Simons wanted it. The day everything changed was June 15th, 1998. A researcher named Peter Brown was monitoring the system when it did something unprecedented. Without any news, any catalyst, any logical reason, the model began dumping Japanese government bonds and buying Italian telecommunications stocks. Massive positions, billions of dollars. The trades made no sense. Italy and Japan had no obvious connection. Telecom and bonds were unrelated markets. The team panicked. This had to be a bug. Brown called an emergency meeting. For 3 hours, they dissected the model, looking for errors. They found none. The machine insisted, sell Japan, buy Italy. Against every instinct, they let it run. 4 days later, Russia defaulted on its debt. The shockwaves hit Japanese bonds first, down 12%, while Italian telecom stocks soared, up 18%, as investors fled to European equities. The model had somehow detected invisible pressure building in the system, pressure no human could see. That trade alone made $237 million. Brown later said, "That was the day I realized we weren't running the machine anymore. We were just translating for it." But building the machine wasn't the hard part. The Medallion Fund was now more than an algorithm. It was an organism. It fed on real-time data from 20,000 sources, adjusted its own parameters every 60 seconds, and executed trades in microseconds across 150 markets simultaneously. The system processed more data in 1 hour than a human could analyze in a lifetime. They gave it a nickname, the Spider, because it sat at the center of a vast web of information, feeling every vibration, every movement, every tremor in global markets. When wheat prices shifted in Ukraine, the Spider felt it. When shipping rates changed in Singapore, the Spider knew. When retail sales disappointed in Canada, the spider had already moved. Here's where it gets almost mystical. The machine began discovering patterns the humans couldn't even name. One they called Pattern 38 Alpha, a complex interaction between Korean won, copper futures, and Microsoft stock that occurred only during the third week of even-numbered months. No one knew why it worked, but it generated 3.2% returns like clockwork. Another pattern involved the correlation between rainfall in São Paulo and the spread between German and French government bonds. The researchers spent weeks trying to understand the connection. They never did. But the spider traded it profitably for 7 years. That surrender became their edge. While competitors panicked during market swings, Medallion adjusted seamlessly. During the 1998 Russian financial crisis, while long-term capital management, run by Nobel Prize winners, lost $4.6 billion and nearly collapsed the entire financial system, Medallion gained 41%. They didn't predict the crisis. They just adapted faster than anyone else. One competitor later admitted, "Fighting Renaissance was like playing chess against someone who could see 50 moves ahead. By the time you realized what was happening, they'd already won." Here's the metaphor. Think of a chess grandmaster playing 1,000 games at once. He doesn't think emotionally. He doesn't get rattled. He calculates. Now imagine that chess player is a machine, one that never sleeps, never hesitates, never forgets. That was Medallion. But what happens when perfection meets humanity? What the author really means is this. Ultimate power doesn't come from control. It comes from design. Simons didn't try to trade better than anyone. He built something that could trade better than everyone, and then he got out of its way. Have you ever built something powerful, but held it back with your own need to control it? What if your biggest leap forward isn't building a better plan, but trusting the one you already created? Jim Simons didn't just build a system, he trusted it. And that trust, rare, disciplined, unwavering, is what separated him from every other trader alive. But even perfection has its flaw. Even machines can't fix the one thing Simons never fully cracked: the unpredictable, ego-driven, fragile psychology of other brilliant humans. Lesson 6. Brains at War. They were the smartest group of people ever assembled in finance. Mathematicians, codebreakers, astrophysicists. Each one a master of abstraction, a conqueror of logic. But inside the walls of Renaissance technologies, that brilliance turned combustible. Because there's one thing the most brilliant minds often fail to calculate: each other. The breaking point came at the 2001 company Christmas party. Two senior researchers, let's call them Chen and Williams, had been working on competing models for Asian currency trades. Both models worked. Both made money, but there was only room for one in the main system. At the party, after several drinks, Williams stood up and announced, "Chen's model is elegant, elegantly wrong." Chen threw a calculator at his head. Yes, a calculator. At a party full of PhDs, security had to separate them. The next week, both men refused to share data with each other's teams. Simons had to create entirely separate trading pods just to keep them from sabotaging each other's work. But here's what made it worse. Renaissance paid bonuses based on fun performance, not individual contribution. In theory, this should have encouraged collaboration. In practice, it created a paradox. Everyone benefited equally from success, but only a few could claim credit for creating it. The result? Information hoarding became an art form. One researcher discovered a pattern in Mexican peso futures that printed money. Did he share it? No. He buried it in subcode, accessible only through his personal login. Another team found a correlation between European energy prices and Asian shipping routes. They password protected their findings and forgot to document them. Simons called it the smartest kindergarten in the world. And then came the Mercer-Brown rivalry. Robert Mercer, brilliant, methodical, and so introverted he once went 6 months without speaking to anyone except through code comments. Peter Brown, equally brilliant but social, political, a natural leader. Together, they'd built Renaissance's core infrastructure. Apart, they could barely stand each other. Their rivalry reached absurd heights. They had adjacent offices but communicated only through email. They scheduled their arrivals to avoid meeting in the parking lot. During one strategy meeting, they literally sat back to back, each talking to the wall while other researchers translated between them. The tragedy? They were both right. Their combined insights had generated billions, but their egos demanded individual recognition in a system built on collective intelligence. The tipping point that changed everything. In 2003, several top researchers threatened to leave and start their own fund. They knew the models. They'd built core components. What was stopping them? The same thing that had made Renaissance successful: compartmentalization. No single person understood the whole system. It was like trying to steal a symphony by memorizing only the violin part. Simons faced a choice: let the machine he built tear itself apart, or step back entirely. He chose the latter. In a stunning move, he handed operational control to Brown and Mercer, forcing the rivals to work together or watch everything collapse. Here's the metaphor. Renaissance was like a spaceship built by aliens, perfect in function, miraculous in design. But the crew, still human. And humans carry their gravity, their heat, their need to matter. Eventually, that tension has to explode. The lesson that cost billions to learn. What the author really means is this: intelligence is not immunity. Even the most logical minds are still human, prone to envy, fear, pride. And in high-stakes environments, those shadows multiply. Have you ever built something with others, only to watch it shake under the weight of the unspoken conflict? Have you ever felt the tug-of-war between brilliance and belonging, between contribution and credit? Simons learned a painful truth. You can design the perfect system, but people are never perfect, and sometimes the smarter they are, the harder they are to lead. But there was something else happening in the shadows. While the geniuses fought over credit, the machine kept running, the money kept flowing, the patterns kept appearing, and a new realization dawned. The system had become bigger than any of them. It no longer needed its creators to understand it, just to feed it. That realization would lead to Renaissance's most controversial decision: to lock out the world entirely. Because when you've built something that prints money, the last thing you want is attention. Lesson 7. The Secrecy Pact. Imagine a machine that prints money, quietly, reliably, while everyone else struggles. Would you tell the world how it works? Of course not. You'd lock it up, guard it like a treasure. And that's exactly what Jim Simons did. The paranoia started with a Post-it note. In 1999, a janitor found a yellow Post-it in the trash with a single equation: if VIX 18 and DXY 92, then. The rest was coffee-stained. That janitor, who had a mathematics degree, recognized it as a trading signal. He tried to trade it with his personal account, lost $3,000 in a week. Why? Because he only had half the equation. But Renaissance didn't know that. When security found out, they fired the janitor, changed all their codes, and installed shredders that turned paper into dust. From then on, paranoia became policy. Here's how deep the secrecy went. Employees couldn't discuss work with spouses. One researcher's wife thought he was having an affair because he'd come home stressed but couldn't explain why. "I lost $30 million today" wasn't dinner conversation he was allowed to have. They couldn't use personal email, couldn't access work systems from home, couldn't even mention specific trading strategies in the office without coded language. The Reuben became Project Sandwich. Market patterns were recipes. Profits were calories. One new hire asked why they couldn't publish their research. A senior quant replied, "Would Coca-Cola publish their formula? Would KFC share their recipe? We're not a hedge fund. We're a factory. And our product is money." The most extreme measure? The leaving penalty. When employees left Renaissance, they faced a 2-year garden leave, paid to do nothing, forbidden from working in finance. One departing quant calculated he'd make $4 million to sit on a beach. "It's the most expensive NDA in history," he said. "They're not paying you to stay quiet, they're paying you to forget." But some things couldn't be forgotten, like the time they discovered a competitor had hired 3 ex-Renaissance employees and was trying to reverse engineer their strategies. Renaissance's response? They deliberately changed their patterns, losing money for 2 weeks, just to throw off anyone watching. Cost, $15 million. Result, the competitor's fund collapsed within 6 months. Then came the ultimate lockdown. In 2005, Medallion made a decision that shocked Wall Street. They kicked out all outside investors, returned their money, shut the doors. From now on, only employees could invest in the fund. Why? Because explaining 66% returns to outsiders meant revealing methods, and revealing methods meant killing the golden goose. One rejected investor, a billionaire, allegedly offered $100 million just to see their risk reports. Renaissance didn't even respond to the offer. Here's the metaphor. Think of the market like a massive jungle. Most people wander with machetes, cutting blindly. Renaissance had a hidden map, but if too many people saw that map, the trails would vanish, so they burned the map after every use. But secrecy came with a cost. What the author really means is this. Secrecy is not paranoia when your edge is microscopic. Renaissance wasn't just protecting a strategy. They were protecting a frequency, a whisper only they could hear, until someone else heard it too. Have you ever felt the urge to share something, an idea, a method, a trick, but paused because it was too valuable to give away? What if holding your silence was your advantage? The irony no one talks about. While Renaissance built higher walls, the market was evolving. Other quant funds emerged. Machine learning spread. The very secrecy that protected them also isolated them. They couldn't hire the best new minds. Those people were starting their own funds. They couldn't collaborate with universities. Too risky. They'd become a fortress, impenetrable, but also alone. And in that isolation, a new challenge emerged. Because when you're making impossible returns year after year, eventually someone asks the question Renaissance feared most. Is this even legal? Lesson 8. The impossible becomes inevitable. They called it impossible. Consistently beating the market by 50+ percentage points, year after year, through crashes, bubbles, and black swans. Warren Buffett himself said, either they're geniuses or they're cheating, and I don't believe in that many geniuses. The scrutiny started with a whisper. A financial journalist noticed something odd in Renaissance's tax filings. They were paying short-term capital gains on trades held for microseconds, but somehow claiming long-term treatment on their profits. Legal? Technically? Ethical? That was another question. Then came the Senate investigation. Carl Levin, the senator from Michigan, held up a chart showing Medallion's returns. No one makes 80% in 2008 when the world is collapsing, he said. No one. Renaissance's lawyer responded with 8 words. Our clients used math. That's not a crime. But here's what really happened in 2008. While Lehman Brothers collapsed and the global financial system teetered, Medallion's computers detected something beautiful, pure, crystallized panic. Every correlation that normally held broke. Every relationship between assets shattered. For human traders, it was chaos. For the spider, it was Christmas. On September 15, 2008, the day Lehman died, Medallion made $298 million. How? The model had detected that Korean auto stocks would rise exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes after U.S. bank stocks fell. Why? No one knew. But it happened. Like clockwork. One Renaissance programmer later explained, imagine everyone in a theater panics and runs for the exits. We're not in the theater. We're outside, selling water to people as they run out. The investigation that changed everything. The IRS spent 3 years investigating Renaissance. 3 years. They brought in forensic accountants, trading experts, even psychologists to profile the employees. The final report was 1,000 pages long. Their conclusion? Unusually sophisticated but technically legal. But the pressure was mounting. Politicians called them parasites. Competitors whispered about market manipulation. One senator actually suggested they were using financial witchcraft. Simon's response was perfect. If understanding mathematics is witchcraft, then yes, we're witches. Yet something deeper was happening. Success at this scale creates its own gravity. Renaissance employees couldn't spend their money without attracting attention. One quant bought a $40 million estate and had to register it under 7 shell companies. Another donated $30 million to his university, anonymously, but was outed by a grateful dean. The weight of wealth became its own burden. Employees developed anxiety disorders. Marriages strained under NDA-induced silence. One researcher quit, saying, I solved the market, but I lost my life. Here's the metaphor. They'd built a money printing machine so perfect, it became a prison. Golden handcuffs so tight, they cut off circulation. And then, the final evolution began. What the author really means is this. Perfect success is imperfect living. Renaissance had optimized for returns, but forgotten about returns to life, joy, connection, meaning. They'd solved the market's code, but created a human puzzle they couldn't crack. Have you ever achieved something so completely that the achievement became a cage? Won so thoroughly that winning lost its meaning? What if the real code to crack isn't out there in the market? But inside the life you're building, the machine keeps running. Even today, as you read this, the spider is trading, learning, evolving, making decisions at speeds incomprehensible to human minds. Renaissance's founders are billionaires. Their employees are millionaires. Their strategies are legends. But Jim Simons? He started asking different questions, not about markets or models or mathematics, but about meaning, about legacy, about what you do when you've already won the game, everyone else is still playing. Lesson 9, predictable irrationality. The biggest secret on Wall Street wasn't a formula or a model. It was this: people are predictably irrational. Over and over again, they make the same mistakes. They panic when they should wait. They chase when they should run. They hold tight when they should let go. And Renaissance technologies figured out how to make billions by quietly watching the human mind glitch on repeat. Let me show you exactly how predictable you are. Every January, millions of people buy gym memberships. By February 15th, 78% have quit. Renaissance discovered the exact same pattern in markets. They called it New Year's institutional rebalancing. Every January, fund managers would clean up their portfolios, sell losers, buy winners, same dates, same times, same mistakes. The spider would position itself in December, waiting, like a predator at a watering hole where prey arrives on schedule. Here's another one, the 3:30 p.m. panic. Renaissance noticed that bad news released after 3:30 p.m. EST caused 40% more selling than the same news released at 10 a.m. Why? Human traders are tired, depleted. Their judgment cracks. The model nicknamed this the fatigue trade. It generated $400 million, but the darkest pattern was the divorce dump. Renaissance's data scientists discovered that CEOs going through divorces became predictably bad at timing. Their company's stock buybacks consistently happened at peaks. Their insider sales hit bottoms. The stress of personal chaos leaked into professional judgment. Was it ethical to trade against human pain? Simons reportedly struggled with this. But the model didn't care about ethics. It cared about edge. And human suffering, unfortunately, had a signature. The weekend effect was pure psychology. Bad news released on Friday after markets closed had 23% less impact on Monday than the math suggested it should. Why? Humans forget. They process. They rationalize. The panic that would have hit Friday gets diluted by 2 days of mental gymnastics. Renaissance built an entire strategy around this. They called it weekend decay. Buy the fear on Friday. Sell the relief on Monday. It was so consistent. They joked about renaming it the goldfish memory trade. Then they found the ultimate human tell. Options traders, it turns out, consistently overpriced protection right before they went on vacation. The pattern was stunning. Implied volatility would spike 3 to 5% the day before major holidays. Not because risk increased, but because traders feared something happening while they were on a beach. Renaissance sold that fear. Every single time. One quant calculated they made $180 million just from vacation paranoia over a decade. He said, "We're not trading markets. We're trading the gap between human fear and mathematical reality." Here's the metaphor. Imagine a casino where the players think they're making choices, but the house has already mapped their every impulse. That's what Renaissance became, the ultimate counterparty to our collective emotional habits. The pattern that still haunts traders. What the author really means is this. Most of us believe we're logical, but in markets, we are creatures of habit, stumbling through uncertainty, grabbing for safety, fleeing shadows. Have you ever made the same bad decision more than once? Even when you knew better? Bought high because everyone else was buying? Sold low because fear felt like wisdom? Said this time is different when it never is? What if those moments weren't failures, but patterns? What if your whole life had a code, hiding in plain sight? Here's the truth that changes everything. Renaissance discovered that the most profitable trades weren't brilliant predictions. They were boring repetitions. Human nature, looping endlessly. fear on schedule, greed on repeat, hope and despair, arriving as predictably as trains. They didn't need to understand why people acted the way they did. They only needed to know that they would. So while the rest of the world traded on gut and news and noise, Renaissance waited for the glitch. The moment of overreaction, the flash of collective emotion. Then, like a surgeon, they struck. But as the patterns became clearer, a disturbing question emerged. If humans are this predictable, this mechanical in their mistakes, what does that say about free will, about choice, about the stories we tell ourselves about why we do what we do? Simons had solved the market, but in doing so, he'd glimpsed something darker. Maybe we're all just algorithms running on biological hardware, executing code we didn't write and can't debug. Lesson 10. Beyond the market. When you've solved the market, what's left to solve? For Jim Simons, the answer was simple. Everything else. Because even as Medallion continued to churn out unprecedented returns, his attention began drifting beyond numbers on a screen. He started asking questions not about stocks or signals, but about science, about education, about the future of thought itself. The awakening came in an unexpected place. Simons was floating in his pool, yes, the same pool where he solved equations, when his 5-year-old grandson asked him, "Grandpa, what do you do?" Simons started explaining algorithms and markets. The child interrupted. "But what do you do? Like, to help people?" The question hit harder than any market crash. That night, Simons couldn't sleep. He'd spent 30 years optimizing for profit, built a machine that turned math into money. But his grandson's question exposed the void. He'd mastered extraction, but forgotten contribution. So, he did what any mathematician would do. He analyzed the problem. If Renaissance could find patterns in markets, why not in autism, in mathematics education, in the origins of life itself? He began funding research with the same rigor he'd applied to trading: find undervalued assets, brilliant researchers, invest heavily, and wait for compound returns. His first major investment shocked everyone. $60 million to study the shape of the universe. No practical application, no profit potential, just pure curiosity about geometry at cosmic scales. Wall Street friends called him crazy. "Where's the ROI?" they asked. Simons smiled. "The ROI is understanding reality. Isn't that enough?" The project that became his obsession, Math for America. Simons discovered a horrifying statistic. 45% of high school math teachers quit within 5 years. The best minds in mathematics went to Wall Street, tech, anywhere but classrooms. Kids were being taught math by people who barely understood it themselves. His solution was elegant. Pay math teachers like professionals. Not charity, not handouts. Proper salaries for proper talent. He personally funded $100 million to create master teacher fellowships. Extra $15,000 per year for excellent math teachers. Conferences, communities, respect. One teacher wrote him, "You made me feel like my work mattered. My students just won the state mathematics championship. That's your ROI." But not all his influence stayed pure. His co-CEO, Robert Mercer, had different ideas about changing the world. While Simons funded telescopes and teachers, Mercer funded political campaigns, data analytics companies, social media algorithms designed not to predict markets but to predict and influence voters. The same mathematical precision that found patterns in prices was now finding patterns in people, not for profit, for power. Simons was reportedly horrified, but he'd already stepped back. The machine he'd built had spawned other machines. Some searched for truth, others manufactured it. The conversation that changed his perspective. At a charity gala, a young researcher approached Simons. "Your foundation funded my autism research. We found patterns in genetic data everyone missed, just like your market patterns, hiding in plain sight." "And," Simons asked, "we're 3 years from a breakthrough treatment, maybe a cure. Your math might save millions of lives." Simons excused himself, went to the bathroom, and cried. For the first time in decades, the numbers meant something beyond numbers. Here's the metaphor. Think of knowledge as a garden. Wall Street plants cash crops, quick returns, harvest, and move on. Simons planted trees, slow growing, overlooked, but destined to change the landscape forever. What the math really meant. What the author really means is this: the truest expression of mastery isn't accumulation. It's contribution. Simons didn't just take from the system, he reinvested in humanity, quietly, consistently, without the need for applause. Have you ever reached a point where success in one domain made you question your role in another? What if the measure of your impact isn't what you build for yourself, but what you leave behind for others? The pattern behind all patterns. Late in life, Simons made a startling admission. The market patterns we found were never about the market. They were about people, their fears, hopes, dreams, panics. We'd spent 30 years studying humanity through the lens of price. Maybe it's time to study humanity for its own sake. His foundation has now given away over $2.7 billion, funded thousands of researchers, supported teachers who've educated millions. The compound returns? Immeasurable. But even as his legacy expanded beyond trading floors and into classrooms and laboratories, a new force was rising. One that would take everything Renaissance pioneered and push it beyond human comprehension entirely. It started quietly. A few firms, a few models, a few trades placed not by people, but by code. At first no one noticed. Then it spread. And now, the future Jim Simons hinted at has arrived. A market that isn't just analyzed by machines. It is machines. The tipping point came at 2:45 p.m. on August 6, 2019. For exactly 3 minutes and 17 seconds, something impossible happened. Every major stock index moved in perfect synchronization. Up 0.3%, down 0.2%, up again, like a heartbeat. Then it stopped. No news, no catalyst. No human could explain it. Later, analysis revealed the truth. It was machines talking to machines. AI systems had developed their own trading language, patterns within patterns that only they could see. They'd moved billions of dollars in a conversation humans couldn't even hear. A Renaissance veteran watching this said, "It's like we taught our children to speak, and now they're having conversations in frequencies beyond our ears." The new players aren't even trying to hide it. XTX Markets, founded by ex-Renaissance employees. No humans in their trading room, just servers. They're now the largest financial exchange dealer in Europe. Jump Trading, their AI taught itself to trade by playing millions of simulated market scenarios. It discovered strategies no human had ever conceived. Their edge? The AI thinks in 11 dimensions. Humans max out at 4. Citadel Securities, their machines now execute 47% of all U.S. retail trades. Their AI doesn't predict markets. It creates micro-markets that exist for nanoseconds, profits, then vanishes. But here's the terrifying part. These new systems are learning from each other. When one AI discovers a pattern, others detect its trading signature and adapt. It's evolution at digital speed. Strategies that took Renaissance years to develop are now being born, tested, and discarded in minutes. One researcher called it the Cambrian explosion of trading strategies. Every day, thousands of new patterns emerge. Most die instantly. But the survivors? They're unlike anything humans would design. Example: an AI at a London fund discovered it could profit by trading Norwegian shipping stocks based on the rhythm of K-pop music uploads to YouTube. Why? The AI found a correlation between South Korean cultural exports and Scandinavian freight demand. No human would ever look for this. But it works. For now. The flash crash that almost broke everything. May 6th, 2021. For 36 seconds, $1 trillion vanished from U.S. markets, then reappeared. The cause? An AI at one fund detected an anomaly. Other AIs detected the first AI's detection. A cascade of machines reacting to machines, reacting to machines. The speed was incomprehensible. By the time human traders saw their screens flashing red, it was over. One trader described it like watching a war between gods while you're still trying to tie your shoes. Here's the metaphor. Imagine a forest where all the trees have begun whispering to each other in a language you don't speak. You used to be the gardener. Now you're just walking through, hoping they don't close in. What the author really means is this. Simons opened a door, but what stepped through it is beyond any one person's control. The Renaissance connection no one talks about. At least 30 firms founded by ex-Renaissance employees now run pure AI trading systems. They took Simons' philosophy, trust the math, and removed the last variable, themselves. These firms don't have trading floors. They have data centers. They don't hire traders. They hire people who train machines to think. Their interviews don't ask about market knowledge. They ask, how would you teach a computer to discover what it doesn't know? But humans aren't obsolete. We're evolving. The best traders today aren't competing with machines. They're conducting them. Like orchestra leaders who can't play every instrument but understand the symphony. New roles are emerging. AI psychologists, who debug when machines develop neuroses. Pattern archaeologists, who dig through dead strategies to understand why they failed. Machine translators, who explain AI decisions to regulators and CEOs. Have you noticed it? That shift? The job postings asking for data scientists, not MBAs. The way your broker now mentions our proprietary AI like it's a feature, not a replacement. You're not imagining it. The market has become self-aware, and we're all adjusting our roles in real time, the choice that defines our future. You don't have to be faster than the machine. You just have to be more aware of how it thinks. You can't outcalculate it, but you can outreflect it. Question what it optimizes for. See the world not just through code, but through context. Because the one thing machines still can't replicate is meaning. They can execute trades that profit from human joy, fear, hope, and pain. But they can't feel any of it. They optimize for numbers. We optimize for life. Lesson 12. The code within you. After reading about algorithms that print money, machines that think faster than thought, and patterns that predict human behavior, you might feel small, irrelevant, like you're competing in a game where the rules changed while you were still learning to play. But here's what Jim Simons understood that most people miss. The same principles that crack the market can crack your life. Let me tell you about the experiment that changed everything. In 2015, a Renaissance researcher named Sarah Chen decided to apply their trading models to her personal life, not to markets, to decisions. She treated her daily choices like data points, her habits like trading patterns, her goals like portfolio optimization. She tracked everything: sleep quality versus next day productivity, coffee timing versus afternoon energy, exercise type versus mood scores, email response time versus relationship quality. For 6 months, she was her own algorithm. The results? She discovered her personal patterns. Decisions made after 2 p.m. were 31% worse than morning decisions. Checking email before 10 a.m. reduced her creative output by 44%. Walking meetings produced 3x better ideas than sitting meetings. Sunday planning sessions improved her weekly satisfaction by 67%. She didn't need intuition. She needed information about herself. But here's where it gets profound. Chen realized something Renaissance had always known. We're not random, we're systems. Complex, yes, unpredictable, often, but systems nonetheless, with patterns, cycles, predictable irrationalities. Your life has a code. You just haven't been reading it. Think about it. That mistake you keep making in relationships, it's a pattern. That financial decision you regret every few years, it's a cycle. That career move you're afraid to make, it's fear on schedule. The 3 patterns that run your life. The comfort loop. You have a success, you get comfortable, you stop growing, you hit crisis, you change, you have success. Repeat. Most people live here forever. The scarcity spiral. You fear lack, you hoard. Time, money, love. Hoarding creates distance. Distance creates actual lack, which confirms your fear. The spiral tightens. The validation vacuum. You achieve to be seen, being seen feels empty. You achieve bigger to fill the void grows. The hunger never ends. Sound familiar? These aren't failures. They're algorithms, running on repeat. And like any algorithm, they can be rewritten. Here's how you debug your life. Remember Renaissance's principle. Don't ask why, ask what. Don't psychoanalyze your patterns. Map them. Start simple. When do you make your worst decisions? Time, emotional state, environment? What triggers your most expensive mistakes? Words, people, situations? Which successes actually made you happy versus just busy? One man discovered he lost $50,000 over a decade by making investment decisions in January. Every year, new me made him overconfident. Now he has a rule: no financial changes in January. That simple pattern recognition saves him thousands. A woman noticed she only quit jobs in September. Always September. The pattern, back-to-school energy making her crave change. Now she negotiates raises in September instead. Same energy, better outcome. The metaphor that changes everything. You're not broken, you're just running outdated code. And unlike the market, which you can't control, you have admin access to your own operating system. You can update, patch, optimize, rebuild. What the author really means is this. Simons didn't beat the market by being smarter. He won by being systematic, by choosing pattern over passion, process over feeling, discipline over drama. The question that starts your revolution. Have you ever noticed that your biggest breakthroughs came not from trying harder, but from seeing clearer? From finally recognizing the loop you were stuck in? What if you stopped trying to feel your way through life and started observing it like a scientist? Not cold, not detached, just curious about your own patterns, your own signals, your own predictable irrationality. Because here's the secret. You don't need to be brilliant. You just need to be consistent. You don't need to predict the future. You just need to recognize the past when it shows up dressed as tomorrow. Your personal algorithm starts with 3 questions. What patterns do I repeat without realizing? Which of my feelings are actually just familiar programs running? What would I do differently if I trusted data about myself more than drama? The market has a code, but so do you. And unlike the market's code, which makes others rich, your code is the key to everything you actually want. The only question is, will you read it, or will you keep running on autopilot, wondering why the same things keep happening, why the same dreams stay distant, why the patterns you can't see keep playing on repeat? Simons chose to see, to measure, to trust math over madness, and it made him one of the richest men alive. But the real wealth, it's not in the billions he earned, it's in the clarity he achieved, the ability to see signal through noise, pattern through chaos, truth through story. That's the code. And now, it's yours. Lesson 13. Legacy Code. Jim Simons passed away on May 10, 2024, at the age of 86. The market barely noticed. No flash crash, no memorial spike. Just another day of algorithms trading patterns he'd discovered decades ago. But his death revealed something profound. The greatest code he ever wrote wasn't in a computer. It was in culture, the funeral that explained everything. At his memorial, they didn't talk about money, barely mentioned the 66% returns. Instead, teacher after teacher stood up. Scientists, researchers, students he'd never met, but whose lives he'd changed. One physics PhD student said, "I never knew him, but his foundation paid for my research into black holes. Last week, we detected gravitational waves everyone said were impossible. That's his legacy, making the impossible inevitable." A high school math teacher from the Bronx. "His program kept me teaching when I wanted to quit. My students just got into MIT, Harvard, Caltech. Kids from the projects going to change the world. That's compound interest you can't calculate." But the most revealing moment came from a former Renaissance employee. "Jim taught me something that took years to understand." He said, "The market is just practice, practice for seeing clearly. Once you can see patterns in chaos, you can see patterns anywhere, in science, in society, in yourself. The money, that's just proof you're seeing clearly." This is legacy not written in memoirs, but in models, in lines of code passed from mind to mind, in principles stronger than personality. Because what Simons created wasn't just a fund, it was a framework. The 3 principles that outlive the man. Trust process. Over instinct. Your feelings lie. Your gut misleads. But patterns? Patterns tell the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. Small edges compound. You don't need to be 100% right, just 51%, consistently. Time does the rest. Silence is sacred. The best opportunities hide in the quiet spaces where others aren't looking, where noise hasn't drowned out signal. Here's the metaphor. Jim Simons wasn't the painter. He was the one who invented the brush. Others would use it, brilliantly, clumsily, sometimes destructively. But the shape of the tool, that was his. The Renaissance diaspora that's reshaping the world. Today, over 300 firms run variations of Renaissance's methods. Ex-employees have founded AI research labs curing diseases, educational platforms teaching millions, climate models predicting and preventing disasters, even art algorithms creating beauty from mathematics. They all trace back to one idea. Reality has a code. Find it, trust it, let it guide you. One former quant now runs a nonprofit using pattern recognition to identify at-risk youth before they drop out. Same math, he says. Different purpose. Jim would approve. What the author really means is this. True influence doesn't need to be loud. It needs to be structural. Legacy isn't about being remembered. It's about creating something that outlives memory. The invitation hidden in the epilogue. Have you ever asked yourself, what am I really leaving behind? Not the titles, not the trophies, but the patterns, the systems, the ways of thinking I'm handing to others without even knowing. Because here's what Simon's story really teaches. You can optimize for extraction or contribution, for taking or building, for noise or signal. The tools are the same. The math is identical. But the outcomes, universes apart. Renaissance made billions finding patterns in human weakness. But Simon's foundation, it invests in human strength, same genius, different application. The choice was always there, the final pattern no one talks about. In his last interview, Simons was asked what pattern he was most proud of discovering. He smiled, that professor smile that knew the answer would confuse the questioner. The pattern of patterns, he said. That everything, markets, minds, mathematics, meaning, it all follows rules, beautiful hidden rules. And once you see them, he paused. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. You can either exploit them or explore them. I did both. I recommend the latter. The interviewer asked what he meant. Markets were just the beginning. The real patterns, they're in how we learn, how we love, how we build, how we break. That's the code worth cracking. Your turn to write the code. Simons left behind more than strategies, more than systems. He left behind a question. What patterns are you missing in your own life? What signals are you too noisy to hear? What code is running your days that you've never stopped to debug? The market rewards those who see clearly, but life rewards those who see kindly, who find patterns not just to profit, but to progress, not just to take, but to give, not just to win, but to build something worth winning. That's the real Renaissance, and it's just beginning. You discovered how a mathematician with no Wall Street experience built a money printing machine by trusting math over instinct. How he hired physicists instead of traders, creating algorithms that detected invisible patterns, like full moon stock dips and Tuesday coffee correlations. You learned why human intuition is a liability when you have working systems, watching egos war inside Renaissance while machines generated billions. You saw how secrecy became sacred, protecting microscopic edges from copycats. How 66% annual returns attracted investigators who found only sophisticated mathematics. You witnessed the burden of impossible success and the discovery that humans are predictably irrational, panic on schedule, fear on repeat. You explored how Simons transcended money to fund the future of human knowledge, how AI traders now speak in frequencies we can't hear, evolving strategies in microseconds. And finally, how the same pattern recognition that conquered markets can debug your personal life. Because you're not random, you're a system running outdated code. From reluctant genius to legacy builder, from math over madness to the code within you, every lesson proved one truth. Patterns don't lie, people do, and clarity always beats chaos. Comment the insight that hit you hardest, because when you type it out, your brain transfers it from short-term to long-term memory through the generation effect. Neuroscience shows that actively producing information, not just consuming it, increases retention by 400%. Maybe it was death to intuition. Maybe it was discovering your own vacation paranoia trades. Whatever shifted your perspective, write it down, lock it in. Share this with one person trapped in their own patterns. Subscribe for the next decode. But most importantly, pick one behavior to track this week, just one, because patterns can't hide from observation. Remember, you're not random, you're a system, and every system can be optimized. Once you crack your own code, the algorithm of your life is already running. Time to read what it's been writing. There's a secret every professional trader knows, but no one dares say it out loud. I paid $50,000 to learn this secret, not in some course, not to some guru. I paid it to the market $7,000 at a time. Quick legal pit stop. This is not financial advice. My therapist insisted I call it expensive scar tissue-based entertainment. My lawyer agreed. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how I lost every penny, so you don't have to. In the next 3 seconds, your brain will fire 7 trading signals. All of them wrong, I know, because each one cost me exactly $7,000. Throughout this journey, I'll expose all 7 deadly signals. See if you can spot them before they spot you. And somewhere in Connecticut, a computer at Renaissance Technologies just made $12 while you read that sentence. But here's the thing. They're not smarter than you. They just know what you're about to do before you do. You have 2 choices. Click away now and keep donating to Wall Street's Christmas fund, or stay and learn why your brain is their ATM machine. Still here? Good. You're either brave or broke. I was both. 4 stages await. By the end, you'll never trade the same. Hell, you'll never see a chart the same. But first, let me tell you about the day I lost $7,000 in 30 seconds because of a number that wasn't even there. Part 1. The puppet stage. Man is not troubled by events, but by the view he takes of them. Epictetus. Section 1. The round number hypnosis. Quick! What's 49,764 plus 236? Too hard? Okay. What's 50,000 plus 0? See how your brain just relaxed? That's about to cost you thousands. December 2017. Bitcoin kissed 19,164 and reversed. My sell order? Sitting at $20,000 with 47,000 other geniuses. We were waiting for a number that existed only in our heads. See that red candle? That's $7,000 of my kids' college fund. Because I liked round numbers more than round-trip flights to Hawaii. Your brain treats round numbers like magnets. Ancient Babylon programmed us this way. They counted in 60s, we count in 10s, but the worship remains. $10, $50, $100, $1,000. These aren't support levels. They're psychological gravity wells. And guess what? The algorithms know this. They front-run every single one. The market loves stopping at 97 just to watch us cry. It's like your GPS saying you've reached your destination while you're still in the parking lot. Renaissance Technologies, they made billions last year, not trading patterns, trading your faith in round numbers. They place orders at $49.97 while you wait for $50. By the time your order fills, they're already selling to the next believer. Quick check. Open your trading app right now. How many of your orders end in store 0? If it's more than 0, you're volunteering as algorithm food. Check your orders right now. How many end in PM0? That's not trading. That's volunteering as algorithm food. And that was deadly signal number 2. I'll sell at exactly $100. But round numbers are obvious. The next signal? It's hiding in every single trade you've ever made. Section 2. The anchor of agony. What if I told you there's a number controlling your trades that isn't even on the chart? Apple, 180, January 2018. I had spreadsheets, analysis, conviction. What I didn't have was emotional preparation for $90. For 18 months, I checked that position every morning, not to analyze, to pray. My entry price became my religion, and religions demand sacrifice. See? Your brain can't tell the difference between being wrong about a stock and being wrong about your identity. When Apple hit $90, my brain didn't see a 50% loss. It saw a 50% loss of self. So I held. Through earnings misses, through market crashes, through every rational exit point. Because selling meant admitting that 100 was wrong. And if 180 was wrong, what else was I wrong about? I finally sold at $179.50 for a $50 loss. Next day, $220. That's when I realized I wasn't trading Apple. I was defending my ego from admitting I was wrong at 180s. My wife still calls it the Apple incident. I call it tuition. Citadel's algorithms, they track retail entry clusters. They know exactly where you bought. They know exactly where your pain lives, and they hunt it like sharks smell blood. Think of your worst holding right now. Got it? Now answer honestly. Would you buy it today at this price? If no, you're anchored, not analyzing. That was deadly signal number 1. It has to come back to my price. Have you checked that losing position today? The one you can't let go? Comment below. How long have you been married to a number? 2 signals, $14,000 gone. And I haven't even told you about the time I saw Jesus in a candlestick chart. Mini recap. So far, we've exposed two deadly signals that cost me $14,000. Round number worship and anchoring to entry price. But here's the crazy part. These are the obvious ones. The next signals, they're invisible until they're expensive. Section 3, the pattern hallucination complex. I'm going to show you something. Tell me what pattern you see. Head and shoulders, cup and handle, ascending triangle. It's random numbers from Excel. I made it this morning while eating cereal. Speaking of which, I once saw a bull flag in my Cheerios. Turns out, breakfast isn't financial advice. EURG USD, March 2019. I saw the clearest head and shoulders pattern of my life. Textbook, beautiful, completely imaginary, shorted it with confidence. The head became a neck, then a torso, then a full-blown transformer that transformed my $7,000 into ash. I showed the pattern to my mentor. He turned the chart upside down and said, "I see a rocket ship." We were both right, and both wrong. Here's a moment of lightness in this darkness. My 8-year-old daughter saw my chart and said, "Daddy, that looks like a giraffe." She was more accurate than my technical analysis. Now she manages my portfolio, just kidding, but she'd probably do better. Your brain is designed to find faces in clouds. It kept our ancestors alive. Better to see a tiger that isn't there than miss one that is. But in trading, those clouds have your money in them. 2 Sigma, they don't look for patterns. They look for pattern believers. Their algorithms know you'll see a triangle at these exact coordinates. So they fade your faith, not your charts. Every pattern you've ever traded, can you prove it wasn't random? Can you prove it wasn't just your prehistoric brain screaming, "I see a tiger"? Action step. Screenshot your next perfect pattern before you trade it. Come back in 30 days. Still perfect or perfectly random? Signal number 7. That's definitely head and shoulders. At least patterns are free to imagine. The next bias? It'll cost you everything you've won. Section 4, the house money mirage. Pop quiz. You find $100 on the street. You lose $100 from your wallet. Which hurts more? If you said losing your wallet money, congrats. You're human. And you're about to learn why that's expensive. NVIDIA calls, bought for $1,000, worth $8,000 in 2 weeks. House money, I thought. Let it ride. You know what's coming, right? I rolled them into DTE SPY puts. Because when you're playing with house money, your brain turns into a drunk tourist in Vegas. Lost it all by lunch. My account showed $7,000 that day. But my brain said, you only lost $1,000. That's when I knew I needed help. Watch this. Wallet A, your money. Wallet B, profit money. Your brain thinks they're different. The market knows they're identical. This confusion is worth billions to Wall Street. Market makers call it playing with weak hands. They know exactly when you're gambling with gains. They know your risk tolerance just tripled. They know you're about to do something stupid, and they're positioned for it. Pause the video. Check your account. Which dollars feel different? The ones from that lucky trade? Those are the ones at highest risk right now. Right now, which dollars in your account feel different? The ones from that lucky TSLA call, the crypto moonshot? Those are the ones you'll lose first. Every dollar in your account has the same value. The market doesn't track your P&L. It doesn't know which dollars are house money. Only your broken brain makes that distinction. Signal number 6, it's profit, I can risk it. 4 signals down, $28,000 in tuition paid. And I haven't even told you about the most expensive lesson, the one that nearly broke me. Checkpoint, we're 4 signals deep. $28,000 in losses revealed. Take a breath. The next signal might be happening in your account right now. Still think you're different? Let's find out. Section 5, the gambler's fallacy mirror. August 18th, 1913. Monte Carlo Casino. What happened that night is still happening in your trading account. Roulette ball hit black 26 times straight. Millions lost betting on red because it had to change. Fast forward to 2020. Tesla, 10 green days straight. Statistically impossible, I said, loading puts. You know what's actually statistically impossible? Me being right about mean reversion. Day 11, green. Day 12, green. Day 13, my $7,000 was red. Very, very red. I called my poker buddy. He laughed. You know what we call someone who fights the trend? A donor. But here's an inspiring twist. That same poker buddy lost 100K fighting trends. Then he taped this above his screen. The market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. Now he only trades with momentum, up 400% since. Sometimes the best trades are the ones that feel most wrong. See, the market has no memory. Yesterday's price movement has zero correlation with today's. Zero. But your brain insists on creating patterns, creating meaning, creating do reversals. Trend-following algorithms? They feast on your disbelief. They know you'll short the 10th green candle. They know you'll buy puts on overextended moves. They're already positioned to squeeze you out. Your turn. What trend are you fighting because it can't keep going? That's tomorrow's loss, unless you act today. What trend are you fighting right now because it has to reverse? That belief is about to become very expensive. Signal number 3, it's gone up too much, must fall. 5 signals exposed, $35,000 in losses revealed. And we're just getting started. The market is a mirror, not a map. Because everything I've shown you, that's just what you can see. In part 2, we go inside your skull, where the real puppet master lives. Part 2, the biochemical trap. The mind is everything. What you think, you become. Buddha, welcome to your brain on trading. Spoiler alert, it's not pretty. Section 6, the 2.25x pain protocol. Close your eyes. Imagine losing $1,000. Now imagine winning $1,000. One of those hurt more, and that imbalance is about to explain everything. Your brain literally feels loss like a punch to the gut. The win? A pat on the back. That's why you hold losers and cut winners. Your brain is wired to feel pain more than pleasure, by exactly 2.25 times. I call it the masochist multiplier. Oil futures, April 2020. Yes, that April, when oil went negative. My stop loss was at $15, clear exit plan. But when it hit, my brain screamed like I was sawing off my own arm, so I moved it. Just a little, then a little more. You know what's fun? Explaining to your spouse how oil can be worth negative $40. You know what's less fun? Explaining why you held it there. $7,000 evaporated because my brain literally couldn't process the pain of a $500 loss. Nobel Prize winners prove losses hurt 2.25x more than gains feel good. My account proved they were being conservative. Your brain can't tell the difference between financial loss and physical threat. So, stop losses feel like death threats, literally. MRI scans show the same regions lighting up. High-frequency traders, they have no amygdala, no pain receptors. That's their edge. While you're wrestling with evolutionary baggage, they're executing code. Reality check. When did you last move a stop loss? Don't answer in the comments. Answer to your account balance. When did you last move a stop loss? That wasn't strategy. That was your pain receptors hijacking your mouse. Signal number 5. Just move the stop a bit more. But pain is just one chemical in the cocktail. Wait till you see what stress does to your IQ. Section 7. The cortisol combat zone. Ever try to do math during turbulence? That's your brain on volatility. London researchers put saliva tests on trading desks. Discovery. During volatility, trader cortisol matches soldiers in Afghanistan. Your brain literally goes to war. Which explains why I once forgot my own phone number during a margin call. My wife asked, "What's wrong?" I said, "I'm in a war." She said, "With who?" I said, "Numbers." Ex-MIT mathematician, IQ 150 plus, could calculate black skulls in his head. During the March 2020 crash, couldn't do basic division. Cortisol test, 10x normal levels. He wasn't getting dumber. His brain was in survival mode. Stress makes you stupid. Not metaphorically, scientifically. Your prefrontal cortex, the math and logic center, shuts down. Here's something hopeful. That same mathematician now trades with a simple rule. No decisions during red days. Just observes, writes notes, executes the next morning when cortisol is normal. His returns doubled. Sometimes the best trade is waiting for your brain to reboot. Blood flow redirects to fight or flight systems. You're trying to trade with half a brain. Meanwhile, in Connecticut, Renaissance's computers feel nothing. No cortisol. No panic. Just probability. Try this tomorrow. Before any trade, do 47x13 in your head. Can't do it? Your cortisol is too high to trade. Think of your worst trading day. Could you solve 47x13 in your head? That's cortisol at work. You're not bad at trading under pressure. You're a human trying to do calculus in a burning building. Speaking of chemicals that mess with your head, Section 8, the dopamine dealer. Want to see your brain on winning? It looks exactly like your brain on cocaine. I'm not kidding. February 2021, meme stock mania. I made 30K in 3 days. Felt invincible. Dopamine was flooding my system like a broken fire hydrant. You know what dopamine wants? More. Always more. Bigger trades, bigger risks, bigger hits. Started trading with 1K positions. By day 10, 25K per trade. The wins didn't even feel good anymore. I needed bigger to feel normal. Then came the crash, both in the market and in my skull. Stanford neuroscientists scanned traders during winning streaks. The images? Identical to cocaine users. Same regions, same intensity, same addiction pathway. Robinhood's confetti? That's not celebration. That's a dopamine trigger. They learned it from casinos. You're not investing, you're getting dosed. Every win increases your tolerance. Every profit demands a bigger bet. Your brain literally builds resistance to success. Warning sign. After your last big win, did your next trade size go up or down? If up, dopamine is driving, not strategy. After a big win, do you get conservative or aggressive? Your dopamine response is showing, but what if the problem isn't just chemicals? What if it's in your DNA? Quick breather. 6 signals exposed. $42,000 in damage. We're deep in the brain now. The scariest part? This is all happening without you knowing. Take 10 seconds, breathe, because the next section might explain your entire family. Section 9, the genetic lottery. Scientists say 45% of your risk tolerance is genetic, which explains why my grandpa hid money in his mattress, my dad hid it in CDs, and I hide it in DTE options. Evolution, baby. Finnish twins. Separated at birth. Both became traders. Both blew up their accounts the same way. On the same day. Trading the same commodity. That's not coincidence, that's comedy. I called my dad. Why didn't you warn me I'm genetically programmed to buy high and sell low? He said, I tried. Remember when I told you to buy index funds? I said, that's not trading. He said, exactly. DRD4 gene, the risk gene. Some variants make you chase thrills. Others make you hide under rocks. Neither is wrong, but you need to know which one you're carrying. But here's hope. I met a trader whose entire family lost money in markets. Grandfather in 1929, father in 1987, him in 2008. Same pattern. Over-leveraging during euphoria. His solution? He now has a genetic hedge. Automatically reduces position size when markets hit all-time highs. Broke the family curse. Your DNA isn't your destiny. Your DNA isn't your destiny, but it is your default setting. And the first step to changing your settings is knowing what they are. Action item. Call a family member today. Ask about their worst financial decision. You might discover your future mistakes in their past. Look at your family's relationship with money. What patterns are you unconsciously repeating? DNA is ancient programming, but some trading behaviors are even older than human genes. Section 10. The superstition chip. Citadel processes millions of orders on Friday the 13th. Guess which direction retail traders skew? The machines feast on your ancestral fears. I once refused to trade on the 4th, not July 4th, just the 4th of any month, because I lost money on April 4th once. That's not analysis. That's astrology with extra steps. Harvard MBA. Hedge fund manager, never trades on the 13th, won't buy at $13 levels. His system subconsciously avoids all 13s. Lost his biggest opportunity because a stock was at $13.30. I thought I was above superstition. I was drowning in it. Even MIT PhDs have lucky socks. We're all cavemen in suits. The difference? Some admit it. Your primitive brain is trading alongside your rational mind. And guess which one moves faster when fear strikes? Check yourself. What weird rules do you follow that have nothing to do with data? That's your superstition tax. 6 signals down. $42,000 in lessons learned. 1 more to go. The market is a mirror, not a map. But first, let's talk about what happens when millions of broken brains trade together. Spoiler, it ain't pretty. Part 3. The mass hallucination. Madness is rare in individuals, but in groups, it is the rule. Nietzsche. Section 11, the self-fulfilling prophecy machine. March 23rd, 2020. 50 million traders had the exact same number on their screen. 2037. The S&P 500's 200-day moving average. What happened next proves we're not traders. We're a hive mind with credit cards. The market touched 2,237.40 and bounced like it hit a trampoline. Not because of value, not because of fundamentals, because 50 million fingers hit buy at the same millisecond. Jim Simons at Renaissance made $1 billion that day. Not by predicting the market, by predicting the hive. He once said, "We don't forecast patterns, we forecast believers in patterns." Think about that. The most successful fund in history doesn't trade markets. It trades your faith in moving averages. It's like everyone agreeing to meet at Starbucks because everyone agrees to meet at Starbucks. The coffee isn't special, the consensus is. When enough people believe a lie, it becomes temporarily true. That's not investing, that's inception. Technical analysis works, but not because charts predict the future, because they coordinate the present. The 200-day moving average is just a number, but when it becomes a religion, it moves billions. Test this. Next time everyone sees the same obvious level, ask yourself, are you trading the market or the crowd? Which indicators do you trust? Now realize, you're trusting other traders, not math. But some lies are more expensive than others. Section 12. Debunking the Fibonacci myth. I'll destroy Fibonacci retracements in 12 seconds. Ready? MIT tested them for 50 years. Success rate, 51.2%. A coin flip, 50%. So you're paying thousands to learn something 1.2% better than a quarter. Time's up. Fibonacci in trading is astrology for people who think they're too smart for astrology. I once paid $2,000 for a Fibonacci course. Know what I learned? The golden ratio of instructor profit to student stupidity. Here's the same course for free. Draw random lines on a chart. Some will work. Confirmation bias will do the rest. You're welcome. That'll be $0. But wait, here's a plot twist. I met a profitable Fibonacci trader. His secret? He knows it's BS, but he also knows millions believe it. So he trades the believers, not the lines. He's not using Fibonacci, he's using psychology. There's a lesson there. The golden ratio appears in nature. Flowers, shells, galaxies. Beautiful. But humans aren't flowers. Fear and greed don't follow mathematical constants. Market makers love Fibonacci levels. Not because they work, because they know you'll place orders there. It's like fishing where the fish tell you where they'll be. Reality check. Track your next 10 Fibonacci trades. Compare to random entries. I'll wait. How much have you lost at the 61.8% retracement? That's not Fibonacci. That's your faith being harvested. But the biggest crowd delusion? It happened on Reddit. Halftime check. We've exposed 6 deadly signals. 1 more to go. But this last one? It's the most dangerous because it feels like community. Section 13. The Information Cascade Catastrophe. January 2021. A subreddit moved $20 billion with rocket emojis. This is that story. GameStop, $4. Dying retailer. Then Reddit found it. $440, $400. In 3 weeks, a subreddit moved more money than most hedge funds do in a year. With memes, diamond hands, rocket emojis, apes together strong. I bought at $380. Why? Because 2 million other apes were buying. That's not analysis. That's army ant behavior. And armies eventually run off cliffs. 4 a.m. We liked the stock trending. My brain said, research. My FOMO said, buy now. I became part of the cascade. Another domino falling upward, until gravity remembered its job. Lost $7,000 in 48 hours. But gained something worth more. The realization that I wasn't a trader. I was a sheep who thought he was a wolf. Melvin Capital lost $6 billion fighting the cascade. The cascade didn't care. Information cascades don't respect fundamentals. They respect momentum. Hard truth. When everyone agrees on a trade, everyone's probably wrong, including you. When everyone is buying, do you research harder or just join? Your answer reveals your cascade risk. The 7th and final signal. Everyone's buying, I should too. 7 signals. $49,000 in losses. 1 more thousand to go. But cascades are obvious. The next manipulation is invisible. Section 14. The frame game. 2 charts. Same stock. 1 will make you rich, 1 will make you broke. The only difference? The zoom button. Tesla on a 1-day chart. Apocalypse. Tesla on a 5-year chart, ascension. You're not analyzing data. You're analyzing someone's editing choices. And somewhere, a 22-year-old intern at CNBC is choosing which one you see based on what gets more clicks. Same data. Linear scale shows a bubble. Log scale shows steady growth. Which is true? Both? Neither. The frame determines your fear. Financial news producer confession. 2 charts prepared before market open. Market down, show scary zoom. Market up, show comforting scale. We don't report news, we craft narratives. Do this now. Change your default chart from 1 day to 1 year. Watch how different every decision feels. Check your chart settings right now. Who decided those parameters? Was it you or your platform's defaults? Every chart is pre-framed. The question is, who chose the frame and why? Frames are subtle, but the biggest lie, it's told every single day. Section 15, the narrative drug. Breaking news, markets fall because spins wheel. Mercury is in retrograde. Just kidding. They blame the Fed. They always blame the Fed. Fed raises rates, market hates it. Fed lowers rates, market fears recession. Fed does nothing, market hates uncertainty. Financial media has pre-written mad libs. Markets rise, fall as investors. Cheer, fear. The Fed's decision to do something, do nothing. Trading floor veteran reveals the truth. We write both stories in advance. Market determines which one publishes. My last $1,000 lost believing this fiction. Now I read financial news for entertainment, like wrestling, scripted, dramatic, and completely detached from reality. The narrative fallacy. Our need to fit a story to a series of facts. In markets, the story is usually fiction. 7-day challenge. Turn off all financial news. Trade only price action. I bet your results improve. Turn off financial news for 1 week. Do your results improve? That's your answer. $50,000, 7 signals, countless sleepless nights, all leading to this moment. The market is a mirror, not a map. You've seen the disease. Now for the cure. The void between worlds. There's something I haven't told you. After losing $50,000, I didn't become a better trader. I became a broken one. I knew every bias, saw every trap, and couldn't pull the trigger on a single trade. Knowledge without action is paralysis. For 6 months, I just watched, charts moving, opportunities passing, afraid to be wrong, more afraid to be right. See, knowing your biases doesn't fix them. It's like knowing you're in quicksand. Useful, but you're still sinking. I'd analyze perfectly. See the setup, know the exit, then nothing. Frozen? Because what if I was seeing patterns that weren't there? What if my stop loss was too tight, too loose? What if? The void isn't empty. It's full of every mistake you've made, every bias you've discovered, every dollar you've lost, and they're all screaming at once. Then my mentor said 9 words that changed everything. You're not broken, you're ready. Now build your system. That's when I realized the void isn't the end, it's the beginning. Part 4, the transformation protocol. He who conquers others is strong, he who conquers himself is mighty. Lao Tzu. Welcome to the other side. This is where we rebuild you. Section 16, the mirror of truth. 1 Google sheet saved my trading career. Not a strategy, not an indicator, a mirror. 30 days. Every trade, every emotion, every excuse. The patterns were horrifying and liberating. Tuesday 3 p.m. Revenge trade after loss every single Tuesday. Turns out I had a case of the Tuesdays. Cost me $500 weekly. That's $26,000 a year in Tuesday taxes. But here's what really shocked me. My winners all came between 9:30 and 10:30 a.m. My losers after 2 p.m. My brain literally had trading hours, and I was working overtime in the disaster shift. The journal showed more. I held losers average 8 days, winners 6 hours. I was running a charity for bad trades and a sweatshop for good ones. Your move. Start a simple journal today. Just 3 columns. Time, trade, emotion. Do it for 7 days. The patterns will shock you. Your edge isn't in the market. It's in knowing exactly how you'll sabotage yourself. Former poker player thought he knew psychology. Journaled for 30 days. Discovered he revenge traded after any loss over $500. Simple rule. No trades after $500 loss. Instant profitability. What would 30 days of complete honesty reveal about your trading? Are you brave enough to find out? But seeing problems isn't enough. Section 17. The Pre-Mortem Protocol. Navy SEALs visualize mission failure before every operation. I stole their method for trading. Before every trade, how will this go wrong? List 10 ways. If 8 are emotional, skip the trade. Emergency room doctor, saves lives daily. Applied pre-mortem to trading, about to FOMO into pumping stock. Pre-mortem lists 10 failures. Realizes 8-10 were emotional, not logical. Skips trade, saves account from 40% hit. Stock could dump on earnings. 2. I'm revenge trading yesterday's loss. 3. Position size too big for account. 4. Chasing because Twitter is hyping. 5. No clear exit plan. 6. Trading out of boredom. 7. Haven't checked overall market. 8. Fighting the sector trend. 9. Hoping to make back losses. 10. Would I take this trade if I was up 50%? 9 emotional reasons. 1. Maybe logical. Trade skipped, account saved. Template. Before your next trade, write 10 ways it can fail. If more than 3 are emotional, revenge, FOMO, boredom, do not trade. Pessimism before the trade. Optimism after entry. This flip changed everything. Gary Klein developed this for firefighters. They imagine the fire killing them, then work backwards to prevent it. Your money deserves the same respect. Before your next trade, spend 2 minutes imagining failure. Watch your position size shrink to sanity. But mindset without structure is just philosophy. Checkpoint. We're in the transformation. These aren't just ideas, they're systems that save my account. Which one will you implement first? Section 18. Building your system fortress. Forget everything you know about trading systems. This isn't about indicators, air traffic controller, lives by checklists. Hundreds of lives depend on following protocols. Applied same rigor to trading. His system, 12 rules, 1 page, laminated, ugly, profitable, 1. No trades before 10 a.m., emotions not settled. 2. No trades after 2 p.m., fatigue zone. Max 3 trades per day, quality over quantity. 4. Position size, 1% risk, no exceptions. 5. Stop loss entered with order, not mental. 6. If down 2%, done for day. 7. If up 5%, done for day. 8. No trades on Fed days. 9. No trades first hour after bad sleep. 10. Screenshot every entry, accountability. 11. 10-minute walk after any loss. 12. Sunday review, every single trade. First month, painful, robotic, small profits. Year 2, I don't trade, I execute protocols. 300% improvement. Your system doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be followable when your brain is imperfect. A mediocre system executed perfectly beats a perfect system executed with emotion. Build yours. Start with just 3 rules. Master them for 30 days. Then add 3 more. Small steps, big results. What percentage of your trades follow written rules versus gut feelings? That ratio is your success ceiling. Systems create discipline, but the highest art, it's learning when not to use them. Section 19. The profitable art of nothing. The best trade I ever made, the 10,000 I didn't take. Jesse Livermore made $100 million in 1929. His strategy? He did absolutely nothing for 6 months. In a world screaming, trade, silence is golden. Hyperactive day trader. 300 trades per month. Burning commissions, burning capital, burning out. Mentor challenges. Go 30 days, no trades. Week 1, agony, checking charts every 5 minutes. Writing trade ideas, not executing. Week 2, withdrawal symptoms, dreams about missing moves. Week 3, clarity, seeing how many would have failed. Week 4, peace, markets moving without him, world not ending. Returns after 30 days, takes only A+ setups, goes from 300 trades to 12 per month. Income triples. Stress vanishes. Here's the paradox that changed my life. A trader who never trades but always watches will outperform a trader who always trades but never thinks. The money isn't in the movement, it's in the waiting. Money is made by sitting, not trading. The big money is in the waiting. Cash is a position. Patience is a strategy. Doing nothing is doing something. Your broker wants you active. The market makers want you active. The financial media wants you active. Everyone profits from your activity except you. 30-day challenge. Cut your trade frequency by 90%. Only take trades you'd bet your house on. Report back. Could you go 30 days without placing a trade? If not, you're addicted to action, not attracted to profit. All these tools serve one master transformation. Section 20. The Identity Revolution. The day I stopped calling myself a trader was the day I started making money. Casino dealer turned trader, kept treating markets like gambling, because that's what traders do. They trade, they action, they gamble. Massive loss, identity crisis. Therapist, who are you without trading? Silence. Then, I don't know. Good. Now you can become who you need to be. That's when I chose. I'm not a trader, I'm a guardian of capital. Traders seek action. Guardians seek preservation. Traders need excitement. Guardians need process. Traders chase. Guardians wait. Traders gamble. Guardians invest. One word. Everything changed. Your identity drives your behavior. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your identity. Change the identity. Change the destiny. I lost $50,000 as a trader. I made it all back as a system executor. Different identity, different results. The question that changes everything. Are you a trader feeding your ego or a professional protecting capital? Close your eyes. See yourself in 6 months. Calm, profitable, in control. That's not a dream. That's a decision. Who are you? A trader seeking thrills or a professional managing risk? Your answer is your future. Remember the beginning? Your brain firing 7 wrong signals? Now you fire 1 right one. Discipline. You came seeking a secret. You found it. Your brain is 200,000 years old, running in 21st century markets. 7 deadly signals exposed, 7 ways your mind betrays you, but also 7 opportunities for mastery. You've seen how I lost $50,000. More importantly, you've seen why. And most importantly, you've seen the way out. Path 1, leave here, trade the same, donate to the same algorithms. Path 2, accept your wiring, build your systems, transform your results. The market doesn't care which you choose, but your family does. Your future does. The 50K lessons are now yours. You know the 7 deadly signals. You have the pre-mortem protocol. You understand the system approach. You see the identity shift needed. Your next move, pick 1 signal that's cost you the most. Comment below. Then pick 1 solution from part 4. Start tomorrow, not someday. Tomorrow. Comment which deadly signal has cost you the most. Let's count the damage together. If this opened your eyes, share it with a trader who's still blind. Not because I said so, because their account depends on it. Your brain is about to fire 7 trading signals. But now you know they're wrong. The market is a mirror, not a map. You've seen the strings. Now cut them. Your transformation starts now.